Good evening. Welcome to the Azeroth Review. If you're new, hello. All we're going to do here is discuss anything to do with World of Warcraft and potentially side issues, but mostly World of Warcraft. All you have to do is say what you'd like to discuss and we'll get onto it. It does occasionally go forwards and backwards, so sometimes we'll discuss a topic to begin with and then we'll come back to it later on as well, and so on. Tuesdays actually turned out to be a pain in the arse day for me, I'm afraid, though, because it's the day they keep us back at work to do things. So I only just, as I'm getting online, have a chance to even check if Blizzard have said anything stunningly interesting today. It looks like they said a few things. It may not be stunningly interesting. Might just be fixers. Good evening, Harry. But, oh, yeah. I mean, what I do notice, though, you know, on YouTube, evening, Jordan Iron Templar, is, and I don't know whether this is reflected generally, but an awful lot of the videos I see coming out from other creators are not exactly hyped, are they? So I sometimes feel bad doing a video where I'm going to criticise something myself because I you know, it just seems like they're getting, I think, bashed more than is necessary. I think some things it's quite... Good morning, Australia, blimey. Wow. Gordon Bennett. I have been well. I'm fine, thank you, Declan, yes. Law, has somehow managed to avoid putting his foot in his mouth today? Well, he hasn't been live, has he? They haven't done a live thing. Has he been saying anything at all? Is that the way he's avoided it, by just not saying anything? Can't see. I'm just having a quick scan. I can't really see a lot other than the sort of general, you know, hotfix type stuff that's been coming out. What do I think about a system similar to PvP to get Azerite gear Mythic Plus? Well, I mean, that's the same sort of lines as the Hydra core, isn't it, really? You know, the idea of the PvP, I assume you mean filling a bar. So when you've done enough Mythic Plus dungeons, you get a piece. The downside to that is that you're... because with the PvP, you can fill a bar. Some of the gear can be crap. When it's an Azerite piece of gear, especially early on, it's almost certain at the right level to be an upgrade. And the downside is it's like, where do you set the bar? Because there are some people that just do Mythic Plus for a few times a week, but maybe they do good ones, good keys, they push really high, but they just do a few, they just do one session. Maybe there's people who really like do 50, you know, 50 a week. Where do you set that bar? Because you can't have the ones doing... I would still limit it. Whatever method you use, I would limit it to one piece a week. Now, if it was a bar to be filled up and you've done your, like islands, for example, you've done your enough of your Mythic Plus dungeons, here's an Azerite piece, with the item level set at whatever was the highest key, or in that bracket, obviously it's not one item level for each Mythic Plus level, it's in brackets, but for whichever bracket was the highest dungeon you completed, that would be okay. I'd be more than happy with that system, that could work, absolutely. But, I mean, what I was saying is when you narrow it down, you can have variations on a theme, but ultimately there are only three ways to award it. You either get it from the dungeons itself, you get it from the cash, but not in the way it's done now. You have it on a much more guaranteed basis, like a more common basis. Maybe even once a week, maybe not once a week, but regularly. Or you get it based on how many Mythic Plus dungeons you've done. So the Hydra core would be one method. It wouldn't have to be Hydra core. I know someone in the comments said, no, not the Hydra cores. We use those for cauldrons. So, you know, filling a bar would work too. We need comic book by worst expansion ever. No, it's mean. I mean, the other thing, did I actually make this point? Or was I going to make this point and didn't actually say anything? I might have done. I can't remember. The other thing with that video, that Azerite video, that was my third take of it as well. I did it first of all, and I looked at it, and I thought, it's a little bit long. I was trying to keep it down to 10 minutes, but without scripting it. I thought it's a bit long. I'll do it again. And I did it again, and I tried to be really on point and not ramble on like I sometimes do. And it was almost as long. I thought, all right, we'll do this. And then I thought, actually, no, there was something clever I said in the first video. I forgot to say in this one. So I did it again. So that was the third time doing it. So I can't remember what I actually said in the final thing, is what I'm saying. But my view is this. If BFA, as it is now, if BFA had have come straight after Warlords of Draenor, I think people would be pleased with it. They wouldn't be pleased with certain... I'm not saying they'd be whole scale happy, but they'd definitely be thinking of it as a good expansion because it's come after WoD. And then if Legion, as Legion was, comes after BFA, people would have been happier still again because that got better. I think the problem was that Legion had more resources than they could possibly give to BFA because Legion had Legion's resources, plus it had longer for them to think about it because they started planning Legion at the same time as they started planning WoD because they did them in parallel. And it nicked a load of WoD's resources as well. So no expansion is ever going to be given the same resources that Legion was. Morning from Louisiana. It's morning for everyone, is it? Is it still morning? I suppose it just about is, yeah. Be nearly lunchtime soon, surely. Let's have a look. You think the Conquest bar is great, but you don't think it should be a main method of gearing because you have zero choice of what item you're getting? No, but then you get zero choice of what item you're getting with the Mythic Plus cash anyway, don't you? You know, there's however many Azerite pieces there are. I haven't counted. Obviously, you know, for each armor specialization. Maybe, I don't know, there's probably like, I don't know, I don't even going to guess. And so, yeah, you wouldn't do a bar for everything, but a bar for the Azerite piece from doing, I don't know what's reasonable. Let's say 7 Mythic Plus dungeons. Is that reasonable? And then if you don't want to do 7 in a week, you just do 4 one week. And then when you do your third one the following week, because the bar doesn't reset, then you get your piece. That sounds reasonable to me. Am I playing WoW Classic? I'm not playing WoW Classic now, no. Why? Is it available now? I'll potter about a bit. See, the thing is, my attitude to the WoW Classic is I'm glad they're doing it because I think there's the demand for it. I personally would like to potter about in it because I miss things from there. If they'd have never changed the 1 to 60 content in the game, I wouldn't care that much about it because I experienced vanilla when it was vanilla and I was perfectly happy, and I was also perfectly happy it moved on. There are certain features that I wish hadn't been changed. I understand why they were. But what I most miss is some of the zones and some of the dungeons. Scholarmance remains to this day my favourite dungeon, and I can't even go back into it. That's really annoying. I cannot tell you how annoyed I am that I cannot do Scholarmance. Now, well, yeah, anyway. Or even Upper Blackrock Spire or Lower Blackrock Spire, come to think of it, but especially Upper Blackrock Spire as it was intended to be, because Lower Blackrock Spire hasn't changed that much. They took a couple of things out of it. But the dungeon is effectively unchanged. So let's have a look. Wish you luck on Mythic Zekvos. Well, good luck to that. That's actually one of my favourite fights in Uldir, actually, when I was testing. I like that. On various modes, I just think it's a nice fight. I like it. As a melee, I don't feel particularly gimped by it. So, yes. Same as Mop was my favourite expansion to date, really. Hi, Russell. On the topic of Azerite arm from Mythic Plus, you don't see why these 3 slots should be different than literally any other piece of gear from Mythic Plus. Because they're not normal pieces of gear. Those traits are worth so much. The traits are worth so much on it. It's just not a normal piece of gear. Unless I'm missing something you're trying to say. You just level your Demon Hunter to 120. It's not as impressive as leveling anything else to 120, is it? Although I even started doing a Demon Hunter when I was on this server just to avoid paying transfer fees for characters across. I might actually just pay for a transfer for something. Just to get an alchemist at some point. Would I remove Azerite gear entirely and replace it with a simple Wrath? I wouldn't replace it with anything that's gone before. Personally, if it was entirely up to me, I would not replace it with anything that's gone before. That being said, if I had to replace it with anything that's gone before, I would replace it with the Legion artifact system. Because there was nothing wrong with the Legion artifact itself. The main problem with it was, I've just seen there's another PTR update. I can seem to get about 4 PTR updates a day. Are they adding more spell animations in, I wonder? Or adding more buffs to Brett and taking them away 24 hours later. Yeah, the actual artifact system doesn't seem to be a problem. The main problem, or certainly the problem I had, was the excessive amount of farming of AP you had to do. Rep Paladin Vanilla don't miss. Oh, I don't mean. What was wrong with putting a seal on and auto-attacking? It was brilliant when you lagged, because lag was a thing. Well, it was a thing for me back then. Didn't matter. If I lagged out on a mob, I wasn't going to be dead at the end of it. It was going to be dead. I just looted it, went to the next one. It seems to me that they're trying to find the smallest amount of rewards to give you and the highest goals to set, without you feeling like it's a rich money grab. I think there are easier ways to do. I don't think there is a money grab as such, because there are more efficient ways to grab money than what they're doing. Like I was saying about the Dreadwake, for example. That's a really inefficient way of doing a money grab. It's worked for some people. I don't doubt that some people have paid that where they might not have done otherwise. But I'd have done it. First of all, I'd have just done it and I'd have just said, if you subscribe, I'd have done it for 3 months. I've already said that. And if you do it for the next 3, if you subscribe for each of the next 3 months, then you get the Dreadwake mount. And if you want to pay for that 3 months right now, then you get it straight away. Or if you're just going to do it a month at a time, then when you pay for your 3rd month, then you get it. I'll just do it like that. And then for the following 3 months, another Dreadwake mount. I think that would be a lot more effective. I also think, I keep saying, and I'll keep saying it, I'm boring everyone, I'm sure, but if they were to utilise cosmetic rewards more, people would play more. And like I was saying, if they put mounts, unique mounts, not recolours, unique mounts and pets behind achievements that take a little while to do. So the Pathfinder mount, the Pathfinder achievement, for example. So we've been able to do Pathfinder Part 1. Of course, serious players got it ages ago. Even casual scrubs like me did. There could have been a mount with that. All right? There could be other achievements like the Dungeon Hero achievements. Stuff that for a lot of these players that are unsubscribing regularly, it might, I'm not saying it'll catch them all. Of course it won't. But there will be some that it will. And what would it actually cost Blizzard? What can it actually cost them realistically to design a mount? You know, I don't know how long it takes, but it's like the salary of the designer for however long it takes to make it. It can't be that much when you consider how many subs you would get out of it. It really can't. Anyway, sorry, Malinoric was saying something. Have I missed it? Where's it gone? Oh no, have I gone all the way? So many comments. Oh, Azerite versus Legendaries. Legendaries was far more insidious. The main problem with Azerite traits at the moment is they don't work, and they were never going to work. That was the main problem with them. And then you have the Azerite gear from Mythic Plus Dungeons is another, it's just a side issue. It's a separate issue. I put it this way, I don't think they're going to do it next expansion. Should we put it that way? I think they'll either think of something else or abandon it. Usually when Blizzard get a load of stick, I mean, it's only happened a few times, they tend to abandon the notion altogether. Like if you look at garrisons, I'm trying to find that. Oh, there it is. If you look at garrisons, for example, if you look at the dungeons at the start of Cataclysm, when they got backlash, they just stopped it completely. They just didn't do it. If I want to argue it's more important to have those slots upgraded than limiting them makes even less sense to me. We're already limited to only 1 chance a week at the 385 variants. Well, the reason why I say limit them is because I'm not saying it would have to be done. I'm not saying I'm totally convinced of that. I just feel that just like in Legion, where I felt the need to just run Mythic Dungeon after Mythic Dungeon after Mythic Dungeon for the AP, if people knew that every 7, 10, whatever, they were going to get an Azerite piece, especially at the start of a new tier, and this will happen throughout the expansion, when a new tier comes out, people will feel the need to ram them again to get as many as possible to maximise their chances of getting that piece. It's the burnout element of it. It's not a case of whether it's fair or not. It's the burnout element that I fear for those who can but would rather not do several dozen a week. To be fair, it's more than fun that you're mage at the moment. You love your mage for what? It's the first time for a long time you haven't bought your virtual ticket. Very underwhelming. What do you mean about the rewards? I buy the virtual ticket to watch it, actually. I did prefer it when there were more Murlocs involved. I liked my Murlocs. I was disappointed when the Murlocs seemed to disappear. But I don't worry. I know people are disappointed with the virtual rewards, shall we say. I appreciate that. But, I mean, I get it. Just, as I say, to actually watch the stuff. Maybe they felt access to Classic was reward enough. Here you go. There's a banner. That'll keep you happy. Great, I've already got a banner, thanks, but never mind. You think the Azerite should be limited to the neck? Oh, I mean, that would have been better, of course. Do you think they'll wait until the next expansion to admit the Azerite system was a failure? If they ever admit the Azerite system was a failure, they will absolutely wait until they are hyping up the next expansion. It's the only time they ever admit mistake. And I'm not even convinced they've ever admitted a mistake for something as core as that in the game. Usually they admit what can be passed off as more minor errors, or something where it can be, oh well, some people were arguing for this and some people for that, and the balance of opinion was slightly this way and maybe it shouldn't have been. They'll sometimes say that when they're hyping up the next expansion. I'd be very surprised if they ever say that the Azerite system was a complete shambles. I don't think they'd ever do that unless there was a wholesale change of staff. Really, yeah, I'm not sure about that. It feels like they're trying to reinvent the class gear wheel just for the sake of hype. Well, they do though. This is always my argument. Every expansion, they feel the need to change core parts of the game, and I don't think they should. I think and it is like this in other games as well. There's in some games an expansion is new content. I don't see why it has to. If a class is working well, leave it the fuck alone. And if it's not, put some effort into making sure it does. But that's the sort of stuff that should happen anyway. I really don't. But the problem is this is also from the players now as well. The first thing that happens as soon as the alpha opens up, first thing people are saying is, oh, what's this class like? That's what I got. As soon as I was in the alpha and I was streaming it, people were saying, oh, what's this like? What's this like? Oh, play a hunter, do this. People expect the class changes. And I don't know why they never are. Why am I not raiding this expansion? Because I am just rammed with work. At the start of summer, I was basically told. I volunteered technically, but, I still, because it was not realistic to do it any other way. To teach a completely new course. And I don't just mean a new program, I mean a new subject. For which I have some expertise. More expertise than the person who was originally earmarked for it had. So I did that, and that was just going to take up loads of time. And since I've got back, it's even there's just you won't believe work this year. It's impossible to have a hobby that requires a schedule. It's not possible. And Mythic raiding doesn't just require a schedule; it requires a significant amount of time to be spent outside of raiding as well, which is the absolute nail in the coffin. The thing is, if it was just for the new course, if raiding was going to be like it was before Legion, I'd have thought, well, I'd be able to still do it. I wouldn't have been able to, though, in reality. It's just been too much. Because there's been so many other things going wrong that have required my attention. Let's have a look. Doesn't feel good to you to have a subscription game to have any purchasable items in the store? No, absolutely should. Oh, of course it should. No reason for it not to. They're not... a subscription gives you access to certain things within the game, but it doesn't give you access to everything. It's like Amazon Prime. I've got Amazon Prime. That gives me access to certain products. If it's on the Amazon Prime thing, I can get them delivered the next day. Doesn't mean to say I get the items for free. So the subscription is very clear in terms of what it gives you. If they wish to sell other things outside of that subscription, there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly valid. Perfectly valid. Because you know what you're getting for your subscription, and therefore that's absolutely fine. It's like in games that are technically, you don't have to have a subscription. I always have a subscription if there is one, because it's always worthwhile. I teach... No, I don't teach... I have taught A-level physics. I don't teach it now, no. I teach more general science now, not so high level. But... Do you think there's an A team and a B team? B made WOD, A made Leisure? No, I don't. No, I absolutely don't. What I do think is that there are a small number of people in the development process who may not all be senior people, but I think that the reason I think this is because it makes sense, and I've seen it in places I've worked in the past. Sometimes you can have a small number of people who have a disproportionate amount of influence. And if those people are also half-wits, that can cause problems. Because these are the people who get their own way, but they basically sow chaos. And I think that's what happens here. I want to try and think about the development process from a class designer's point of view. Now, the class designer I will have followed is Cephas, who has designed, amongst other things, the Retribution Paladin. Now, it started off with Blizzard saying, apart from these few specs, no one needs any real changes because we're just going to take your Azerite traits off you. But don't worry, because in Legion we designed the class to work without them. That was, of course, a load of rubbish, and we knew it was a load of rubbish. And then after a couple of weeks of alpha, Blizzard went, oh, yeah, actually, that's a load of rubbish, isn't it? We need now our people to do wholesale redesigns, which they did. Then they're redesigning them, and then Blizzard, like more senior people, dropped other things on them. It was like, oh, we want to put these things on the global cooldown now. Well, that, particularly like Fury Warriors, Frost DK, stuff like that, massively hit them. Was it Frost DKs or Unholy DKs? I can never remember. Some DK. Some wannabe Paladin. And that hit them really, really badly. So then, these poor class designers who had a plan with their limited time now had to do something else to take account of this latest philosophy. Then a new philosophy was added. And then a philosophy was taken away. And then added again and then refined. Every time they get stuff dropped on them, that's making more and more of a mess of what was their long-term plan. It's just a disaster. It's people interfering. If the designers were just given their... It's a bit like me as a teacher. Sometimes, right, over summer I plan my... I review the year ahead and I think, right, okay, so the year behind, I should say. And I think to myself, right, so what areas do I need to improve on? Right, and I spend summer planning that. And then sometimes when I come back, the senior management go, right, our foci for this year are these things. We want you to concentrate on these things. And I just think, hang on a minute, why didn't you tell me that before summer when I was planning? And I think it's the same thing here. I just think we get the same thing. Sorry, I'm missing all sorts here. What's the new subject I'm teaching? Engineering. Do I have any thoughts on the more sycophantic WoW YouTube channels? Is ignorance bliss? I don't judge channels as being sycophantic or particularly hateful. The channels are as they are. If people want to try and appeal to particular people, and it makes no difference whether they're trying to appeal to Blizzard or whether they're trying to appeal to, their idea of the WoW watching public. It makes no difference. If they want to do that, they can do that. I just think that's the way to madness, quite frankly. But if people want to do that, I don't judge them for it. So no, I don't really have a view. You disagree? We should get all the content made for the game in the expansion purchase and subscription. Yeah, but that's not how a business works. A business will make things and it will sell. If it wants to... Because what you're basically saying is, if they design a cool mount for something and they're looking at it and go, oh, well, we don't need to put this in because it wasn't promised part of the subscription, well, we won't use it then. Well, that's just silly. You should always be able to offer add-ons. As long as it's not like gear. As long as it's not, you know that Azerite piece of gear you really wanted? Why don't you just buy it on the store? As long as it's not that, then we're okay. How much of the non-social media engaged WoW population do you think is unhappy with Azerite? I think it's impossible to tell because nobody asks them. They don't go out and provide their responses, and Blizzard never ask them. There's never any surveys in game. And I keep saying this, there should be, every time there's a new, or whenever they want to gauge opinion, they should send out a survey that says, how much do you enjoy this content, on a scale of whatever. And if you complete the survey, you get a goodie bag. You know, people would do it for a goodie bag. In your goodie bag will be guaranteed some consumables like flasks, potions, trade consumables, and a small chance of like a pet and a really small chance of a mount. And, you know, and each time they need to do a survey. Sorry, I can't. Oh, dear. Can't show that. Got to be careful with the old language. Each time they do that, then you get your goodie bag. People would fill it in. But they don't. They'd rather just say, oh, loads of people are doing this content, must be popular. Instead of just realising what it is, loads of people feel compelled to do the content. Did I read Law's comments on forum or Twitter saying he is sorry the Azerite discussion wasn't taken up at the beta stage? No, I didn't. Has he actually said that? Has he actually said that? No problem, Whitefish. That is disgusting if he said that. Absolutely disgusting. Because there's two aspects of Azerite traits. One is the fact that there's too many of them and they can't be balanced properly. If he's saying that that wasn't taken up at the beta stage, he is lying because it was. If he's talking about the lack of accessibility from doing Mythic Plus dungeons, the reason that wasn't taken up at beta is because they deliberately allowed us to believe that the distribution of loot in Mythic Plus was different to how they intended. You know, our perception of how it was going to work. We assumed that what a piece, you would get a regular amount of Azerite gear because of the multiple potential pieces. They knew that. So it's absolute horseshit if he's saying that. Absolutely. If he's trying to say that we didn't say beforehand that we weren't happy, he is lying. Do I think Blizzard should do something to fix faction population imbalance? I don't think they can and keep the game as it is. I see no way anymore to do it without blurring the lines between factions for PvE. I see no other way of doing it. Now, I'm not saying there is no other way of doing it. Just because I can't think of a way doesn't mean to say there isn't a way. Absolutely, if there were a way to do it, I think they should do it. But I just think it's too much in one direction now. It may have started, the exodus to Horde may have began because of the perceived or real racial benefits for raiding. But it doesn't really matter where it is now. I don't even know which... It makes no difference. Really makes no difference because it's too much that way. A lot of people I know who've gone Horde have not gone Horde for the racials. They've gone Horde just to be able to recruit people. If that is what Law said, he is... I would never normally do this, but he's the first person since Celestalon that I just think should just... If I was in charge of Blizzard, I would just be removing him from his post. I'd be hiding him somewhere out of the public eye. I'd probably find work for him, but not in a customer-facing position. Am I teaching statics? No, it's the engineering I'll be doing, the 3 units I'll be doing this year. There will be some. I'm doing health and safety at the moment. Then there's also going to be a physics unit, which includes, I think, forces. And then there's an electronics unit. I'm not really a fan of electronics, I have to say. I used to be mad on electronics when I was a teenager, and I got completely bored by it. Is peanut butter and jelly a good thing? I sometimes have peanut butter and marmalade. I like that. That's nice. Are GMs compelled to read certain scripts and not acknowledge certain bugs exist? Well, GMs, I don't really know about GMs because they're not a really public bunch, are they? You don't really... It's difficult to know with games masters what they're told or anything like that because it's all sort of, well, secret, really. You don't really see... At BlizzCon, you don't really see games masters talking about what their job involves, do you? Or in forum posts or anything like that. We know what, developers tell us what their, day-to-day work is like. Community managers obviously engage with the community. Games masters don't really. They just answer the questions, sometimes incorrectly. We know as well as anyone. Some GMs seem to know a lot more about the game than others. Classic example was Antorus, wasn't it? When you had people going, "Oh, I didn't get my upgrade thingy." This because the first time you did Argus, you didn't get it. Then the second time, you got your upgrade token, and people were going, "Oh, I didn't get it this time," and the GMs were going, "Oh no, you don't always get it," because they were probably looking at Wowhead and seeing that it had not quite 100% drop rate to take account of the fact that the first time you do it, you don't get one. So some of them are more knowledgeable than others. But beyond that, don't really know anything about GMs. For being a community manager, Law seems very thin-skinned. He does, absolutely. I thought he was amazing. When he first joined them, I thought he had a really good attitude. He really went in to try and improve things for the player base. He was really engaging. He did those little guides for people who were doing character boosts. The little DPS guides for the specs that you got with the character boost. I thought that was all really good. And then, because it was during WoD, a lot of people were attacking the game. I think a lot of people did there, it wasn't just him, got very defensive. I think there's that fortress mentality came in, and he just never seems to have come out of the fortress, really. So when you say electronics, is that the same as circuit analysis? No, I mean, it's a lower level than that. Basically, they're going to build circuits, simple circuits, and then spend about 2 weeks finding out what's wrong with it to get it to actually work. It's not high level. You play Ret main, but you frequently tank. Like, I'll give you an example. Today, this wasn't one of my students, but this lad came in saying he was stuck. His circuit wasn't working. He was trying to get a reading with an amateur, and the circuit wasn't working. So his teacher said to him, "Was your circuit working before you put the amateur in?" He said, "Yes." And he says, "Well, I know what you've done then. You've blown your fuse." And which is exactly what he did. He'd blown the fuse in the amateur. And had to be told that. So, yes. You're not supposed to be respecting Azerite gear. They want you to make a choice and live with it. Well, what have I missed? You're 0 out of 4 from Mythic. Oh yeah, of course. America gets the 4th cache today. Yeah. So you've got no Azerite. Yes. It's absolutely dreadful that, because from my point of view, I got lucky. I got one last week. And then technically, I did a few heroic bosses in Aldi and I got a chest, actually. So I've got 2 pieces of more than 340 item level Azerite gear now. But I don't do any other pieces of content. So, but for someone who does want to do it and do it seriously, but they don't want to do anything else, and they should be able to do that, the fact that you can't get... It's the fact that Azerite gear is the core part of character progression that gets me. If Azerite gear was supposed to be mostly about raiding, then it wouldn't be as bad. But it's not. It's supposed to be the core progression feature in the game. So it has to be accessible in all parts of the game that people might reasonably wish to do. Do I think you'll ever see a return of the token systems of past expansions? What do you mean by token systems? There's tokens for everything. Which token systems? You mean tokens for gear? That usually comes later, doesn't it? If that's what you mean, I think we'll definitely get it, but planned to be later on, a later tier. Blizzard designed it such that if you want multiple pieces for different situation specs, but limited it so those sets take an unreasonable amount of time. Yes, well, that was the other... Well, there's two problems, isn't it? One is absolutely, you know, you need certain traits for some situations and other traits for others, and then you can't, in a reasonable amount of time, get them. The other thing is they keep insisting on this aspect of choice. Oh, you should be able to choose, just like with talent, so you should be able to choose the talent that you want to take, or you should be able to choose the trait you want to take, and they stubbornly refuse to accept that there is, in given situations, for your character at least, there is a best one to take. So your off specs, which you use, are still stuck at 340. Yeah, well, that's another problem, isn't it? I think that's mad as well. You know how with like artifact weapons at the start, well, throughout Legion, but you start Legion, it was pretty obvious that it was really horrible for people who play multiple specs that they had to collect extra artifact power to level up the different weapons that they wanted. Pity the poor druid that wanted to play all 4 specs competitively. There weren't many of those, thankfully. But they've done the same thing effectively, haven't they? They've done the same thing. There's no reason why the Azerite gear shouldn't have a different set of traits when you change spec. Is there? There is no reason for that at all. It's just pure spite. I don't understand them. I really don't understand them. Why wouldn't they have just set it up so that when you change spec, you know, you get your piece, you upgrade your trait, there's your spec, and then you change to a different spec, resets it because it's reset, and then you change it to that specs one. Not only the AP, you need the best legendaries. Well, I mean, need was a strong word. For bleeding edge content, yes. But yeah, the fact that there was a big difference between the best and the worst is certainly something that hit everyone. Back in TBC, didn't a GM ask Neelam if they'd ever experienced this bug before on their world first Vashkil? I don't remember. I wasn't really paying much attention to it. I watched videos and was aware of world first stuff in TBC, but I didn't pay a huge amount of attention to stuff surrounding it, I have to admit. Very minor lore question. Have we ever seen the back of Sylvanas' neck since the beginning of Legion? I haven't seen much of Sylvanas since the beginning of Legion, quite frankly. I'm not sure. It's a strange question. Could she have an old god mind control squid on her neck from when her ship crashed? I don't think she's directly controlled. I think it's obvious, and I said a long time ago, that the decision to make her Warchief was old god inspired. But I don't think she is directly. No. I think she's been played for a fool, basically. But we will see. But yeah, in Legion we didn't see much of Sylvanas. She was like, we saw it at the beginning when she was doing nothing to help defeat the Legion. She was after a lantern, and then Gen smashed it, and then that was it. We didn't see her again until the end when she started causing trouble, and then we haven't seen her since. Who the hell is Sylvanas? Seriously. Have I seen Heel vs Babyface's latest video about Law's tweets and such? No, I haven't. Someone just mentioned that. I will be watching the one that he's promising tomorrow, though, because that's right up my street, comparing the 3 MMOs he plays, which is Final Fantasy, which I don't play, so I don't care about that, World of Warcraft and ESO, because I strongly suspect I know what he's going to say in the comparison about that. But, yeah. But no, I haven't seen the video about it, but people were talking about it. So the person who was mentioning it wasn't clear, though, about whether it was on a forum. Because if it was on a forum, that's him speaking as a community manager. If it's on his tweets, his Twitter, that's him talking personally. That being said, I don't really subscribe to the notion that people should just be able to put a disclaimer saying, oh, these are my personal tweets, I'm not representing my work. You're always representing your workplace. So I don't know, but I haven't seen the video, no, and I haven't seen the tweet, but people have told me about it, and it's just absolutely disgusting. from what I can gather. Well, I think my view of Heels vs. Babes, I don't obviously like, you know, talking too much about other content creators. Here's my thing with Heel vs. Babyface. I think, obviously, he loved World of Warcraft, and he built a channel on the back of World of Warcraft content. Then, he decided he didn't love World of Warcraft anymore. But as a full-time YouTuber, and not a super successful one from the point of view of money generated, I don't know how much he's generated, but it's clearly not that much. Maybe just enough to eke a living. And that's his main source of income. So then, of course, he quit WoW to start another channel, which it's fair to say, I followed it, and there was a couple of good videos in it, to be fair, but I think it's also fair to say it was a disaster. Then WoW Classic was announced. He got all excited, started doing WoW videos again. All of a sudden, he was starting to get much more interest, because when it came to it, the people who followed him, as much as some people followed him for him, the fact of the matter is they followed him for his WoW content. That's just a fact. So now he's starting to get that back. But the bottom line is he still doesn't like World of Warcraft. That's what seems clear to me. But he's now also realised he can't make enough money from doing non-World of Warcraft. I think he's trapped. I think the poor bugger's trapped. You know, he wants to be a full-time streamer, YouTuber. The only thing he makes any decent amount of money from, he's got obviously some loyal support that were keeping him ticking over for a year, but ultimately it's World of Warcraft. But he doesn't want to play it. That's how I read it. I could be wrong on certain issues about that. I don't know him personally, but that's how I read his life. I feel quite sorry for him, really. But that's the occupational hazard of doing content where the source material, where you've basically got one source material, you might go off it, and then then it really is like a job. Something you don't understand. People keep complaining about farming the same traits on higher item level gear, but tier has always been that way. Yes, but tier, by now, people who've been raiding every week would have had their tier gear. Maybe a couple of people would still be missing a piece, but generally speaking, you'd have that tier gear at some level. Right? Whether it might have been as a mythic raider, still some hero. I'm not saying you get all your mythic pieces, but you'd have your set bonus by now. Or within a week, I would say. I mean, I considered myself unlucky if it took me 4 weeks to get my full set bonus. So, what's my thought on the change to Divine Steed? It's not 8 seconds up from 3. It's not. They changed it to 8 seconds, and then the next day they nerfed it back down to 3. So unless they've put it back up, let me just go on the PTR and double check, actually, while we're here. They changed it the very next day. Absolute bastards. It's like, oh, Rep Paladins, you don't, oh, wheelchair. Here, 8 seconds Divine Storm. No, only kidding. The other thing about Heels vs. Baby, like Heels vs. Baby, so his channel, he's called Az. The other thing about it, I think, to be fair, another thing that's potentially a bit of a trap. And I feel immense sympathy, by the way, for people who rely upon it for their living. Like, if someone earns twice as much as they really need, then they've got a bit more scope to retain a bit more integrity in their stuff. Not that I'm saying he doesn't have integrity, but when you are, I just don't get the impression he gets that much. Because I know for a start that when he started to do his other stuff, he had to move to cheaper digs. He basically said that in a video. So that's not a great sign. Let me just check, sorry. Divine Steed. Where are we? Yeah, it's back down to 3. It's still at 3 seconds. So, hard luck. It lasted 24 hours, basically. But another thing is, there does seem to be a market of people out there who actually like watching people blash Blizzard, World of Warcraft, whatever, for some reason. So maybe he feels that actually there's an audience out there that will enjoy it. I don't know. Whether it's true or not, who knows? Again, it comes down to if you're making videos for others rather than just what you genuinely feel. Some people may feel the need to do that. I don't know. I don't know, though. Don't know. And I don't watch all his stuff, so I can't really say. Could be wrong. You think we're meant to be able to easily get lower item level sets for every situation, and then to pursue full sets for the same. Drop rates need to be different for higher item level, though. Yeah, but if you do higher level content, then that higher item level isn't really higher item level. For a Mythic Raider, 385 is not that high item level because that's the standard item level. High item level is getting 400 or something. 395, whatever. I don't know. What is the cap? Is it 400 for Titanforge? Can't remember. I'm so casual, I don't even know what the Titanforge cap is. From 1 to 10, how much do I hate the Azerite grind? Oh, don't care. I don't do it. I would hate it though. If we're going to put it to if we're going to put it to the if I had to care about it, how much would I hate it? A lot. I hated Azerite power artifact power grind before, and I would hate artifact power grind now. Doesn't matter what form I have to do it in. I think it's probably not as bad in BFA as it was in Legion, but it's still there, and I still don't like it. There's a great audience for bashing World of Warcraft, the player base. No. You don't play a game that you ultimately hate. You know, if it didn't have more good points than bad, you wouldn't do it, would you? It costs money. I mean, it's cheap, but there's other games that are also cheap. You don't think it's a Blizz basher who just wants more out of the game to recapture what the game once offered? Oh, I agree with that. I completely agree. But it's not. It's a different game. It's moved on. And all games move on. That's all there is to it. There are certain features that I wish they hadn't got rid of. And there are certain features I'm absolutely glad they got rid of. And everyone will have a different opinion about which were the good features and which were the bad features. But what is inevitable in an MMO, the game will move on. Now, I think I do have an issue that Blizzard do make changes for change's sake. So I think some features easily get... I think the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater a lot, basically, to use that analogy. But change is inevitable. Just go with it. It's a bit like when I was going, I finally had a game of Age of Sigmar yesterday. But I was talking to someone, and because I was talking about Fantasy Battle and stuff like that. And they were saying, well, there is an unofficial version that like the community had produced. And my attitude was, no, it doesn't matter. Time's moved on. I'll play. This is enjoyable. I'll play this. I'd rather play the supported version than an unofficial, like, fan-produced version of anything. You played WoW in vanilla and thought it was awful. No, I thought it was great. But it was great for its time. If World of Warcraft now was like World of Warcraft then, but they just produced different expansions with only the new content, I would have got bored of it a long time ago. Did I ever play Warhammer Online? Yes, I did. I absolutely loved Warhammer Online. Oh, it was amazing. Let's see if I can find something. Oh no, what am I looking for? Oh no. Oh, I'll never find it. But yes, I did. I still have a video somewhere of when we went out and did something fairly mad in Warhammer. Because that was a PvP game. And I was in a PvP guild. And this is at the time when I'd quit WoW. I had a great time in that game. The wholesale class changes are about making life convenient for themselves, not making it more fun for players. I don't see how it's convenient for themselves to make wholesale class changes. Gives them extra work. They just had to acknowledge that it needed to be done. Whereas, for some reason, they really didn't think it did. That's why I mean, sometimes they do things that are so stupid, you can imagine that, the development team must be as thick as mince. But when you start to think to yourself, maybe it's just one or two people that are super influential that are as thick as mince, then it makes a certain amount more sense. You can now imagine a whole group of very intelligent people working there, equally as frustrated. They're as frustrated as the rest of us. Part of you thinks Warfronts are a disaster because the faction conflict is a disaster. It makes no sense. Horde have become evil. The Horde haven't become evil. Sylvanas has, and the Horde just haven't done anything about it, I think is the way I would read it. And should be toppled, but they won't let us do it, even as Horde. Well, you say that, But remember that interview where they said that the Horde definitely... They didn't say anything about the Alliance specifically, but they said the Horde is basically going to change. What they specifically said is that Saurfang and Sylvanas represent two aspects of the old Horde. And there's going to be a new Horde identity coming. So something big is going to happen with the Horde. And they're certainly not going to talk in an interview about something that's going to be happening in the following expansion. So in this expansion, something spectacular, you would assume, is going to happen with the Horde. Based on that interview. What are my thoughts on gold inflation or depreciation, BFA? I've not really noticed. I only judge it by how much a WoW token costs. And a WoW token costs sod all, so I'm not buying any at the moment. But I am in danger of running out of gold if I don't sell some things. So I might have to at some point, even though I won't enjoy only getting about 170,000 for it. Oh, yeah, I've noticed my gold going down rather than up, but I don't play much, so I can't tell myself. Because I'm doing... Zappy Boy's dead, I keep telling you. Just because maybe or maybe not. Yeah. He obviously just reincarnated when I wasn't looking. I'll kill him again, it's fine, don't worry about it. And I'll stand out, I'll corpse camp him this time, make sure he can't reincarnate. But I haven't been able to play much of the PTR. That was the thing on the PTR that annoyed me as well. So for ages, I just wasn't able to log on, it kept crashing. And then I happened to mention this in the Ret Discord, and someone said, oh, which DirectX are you using? Well, 12, that's latest, isn't it? Oh, yeah, you need 11. So you have to... Blizzard don't bother telling me this. You have to click it in the options to 11 for the PTR to bloody well work. So I've only just been able to get onto it, and I haven't had much time to do anything in it. So... You picked up a blight spray and a mask. You see. That was your choice, you see. Because a lot of people were saying, oh, not my Horde, weren't they? That was your choice in the scenario. Did you pick up a plague spreader or not? If you didn't, then you get to be the good one who's just following orders. If you did, you're in on it. You've got blood on your hands, or plague on your hands, whatever. Once upon a time, you kept leveling alts because so many classes were great. You wanted to play everything. Currently, you keep leveling alts because you can't find one you really like. Well done on that. I used to just level alts. Well, first of all, it was just for professions. And then it was because you didn't actually have to do that much on your main, which I liked. It suited me. Now you have to do so much. There's so much to do on one character that it's not really worth having it. I haven't even leveled any alts yet. A Volpera will become the new war chef. The war chef. Oh, they can become the war chef. No problem at all. They can cook some gnomes up. No problem. But they won't become a playable race because new races are always based on the expansion in which they come. And new races always appear at the start of an expansion. So they'd have to do something totally out of character to introduce Volpera as a playable race. Zappy Boy was based on Celestalon, very possibly. Naomi versus Volpera. Well, hopefully Volpera can at least cook without burning it to their pan. Yeah, Volpera and Sethrak have Heart of Azeroth animation. That's because they've already explained that. They do that because it's easier for them to do it as if they were going to be playable characters for like their cutscenes and stuff like that. Do I regret changing to Horde now that I'm not raiding? Well, no, I'm playing with people I know, so there is that side of it. Granted, I suppose I could have stayed as a social in the Alliance guild I was in. If I had been in that guild when I found out I wasn't basically going to be able to Mythic raid, then I'd have stayed there. But no, I mean, it's fine. I get over it. My North American player paladin is still human, so every now and then, if I want to do a bit of leveling on that, I'll just level that up. And I've done the story so far, and obviously there's more story to come on Alliance anyway, and the beta. I regret the necessity to go Horde, but not the fact that I did. They've already made a precedent with Magar Orcs. I know, but that's allied races. That's different. Allied races is a totally different thing. There's difference between races and allied races. Allied races are basically what we would have called sub-races, which is what we did call them when we just found out about them before Blizzard announced them. But of course, the difference between an allied race and a sub-race is that a sub-race would imply that it would be another option for you at character creation. Whereas an allied race, no, it's a totally separate thing for which you can pay if you want. And if you level it all the way to 120, or 110, whatever, we'll give you some maybe nice, maybe shit armor. Just for transmog. Whereas Vulpera wouldn't be an allied race because they're not based on anything. There is no... It's not a sub-race of an existing playable race. At least the Vulpera don't squeak when you hit them. How would I know? They never hang around long enough for me to hit them. They keep scurrying away. They're cowards. Absolute cowards. Is it just you or Void Elves have more NPC presence than Lightforged? Where are the mechs and spaceships? Yeah, well, the thing is, if we're going to be honest about it, if you're going to have an expansion where they're still pretending it's Horde versus Alliance, you're going to have an all-out faction war, you really can't draw attention to the fact that one side, and only one side, has spaceships with laser cannons. You know, because it would only be a matter of time before people started asking, why aren't we using the Death Star to destroy the Horde then? So, you've just seen the thumbnail for the top 5 features video. Is Shell Game number 1? No, it should have been, shouldn't it? I do like the Shell Game. I would have felt... it would have felt a bit churlish of me to have said that any of the top 5 features is a single world quest. That would actually be a bit of passive aggression if I'd have done that. No, they're 5 genuine features. But something that people may or may not have noticed is I was going to do the top 5 worst features. And the reason why I still haven't is because every time I get ready to do it, I think to myself, I look at my past few videos and think, I'm in danger of being considered someone who's only bashing BFA here, which is not the impression I wish to give, because I would still say of BFA, for all the criticism I have, it still has more plus points than minus points, which is why I am paying about 25 quid a month for 3 accounts. So I'm still happy with the game to the point where I'll pay for it. I just think it could have been better. And more importantly, I think it should have been better. That's all. So yeah, I've, you know, until I have a string of upbeat videos, I really shouldn't do the top 5 worst videos, because then it just looks like, oh, he's pissed off with the game. It seems like the allied races are just versions of existing races. That's exactly what they are. You know, Blizzard have made no bones about that. That's exactly what they are. Allied races are races that already exist, just a variant of it, for which they would rather you paid for a race change if you wanted it, and have to do a load of achievement hunting to get them. Your favourite Tortollan quest is make logo. No, it's so... They did make it better though. At least it is now faster. It used to be. It used to be like having, Parkinson's disease, really, didn't it? In many ways, you were turning it, and it was like, do the thing, move, and it just wasn't doing. So it was like the body wasn't keeping up with the brain. But it is better, that at least. I don't mind it so much now. I still wouldn't say I actively like it, but it's all right. If you remember correctly, the Alliance should have access to 3, possibly 4 Draenei Death Stars, any of which should be enough to level Orgrimmar. Orgrimmar is a series of mud huts. A firework would see to Orgrimmar, quite frankly. So all someone needs to do is launch a firework at it. That'll sort Orgrimmar out. But yes, absolutely. If they want to blow it away and, Cow Place as well, Thunder Bluff, then absolutely they would easily be able to do that. Oh, you can set fire to a tree. Really? Do you want to see what we can do? But that's why I think we can't see it. Because as soon as anyone gets a reminder that the Alliance have these things, then yeah, people are going to be asking, so Why aren't they using them then? Because there is no good reason. Call it my top 5 could have been better features. Yeah, maybe I will. I might steal that from you. Maybe that's what I'll call it. My top 5 could have been better features. Hold on. Every YouTuber feels the same. What? Except Taliesin. About what? What about not wanting to overdo the bashing? Hi, Petriel. The shell game. I love the shell game. I've always loved the shell game. Like, there was a time years ago, it might still exist, I don't know, but I used to, in the days when you could look at the Garfield strips, because I didn't get newspapers, but it was on the website. You could just look at it on the website, and it had little games on there as well. And one of them was like that. I can't remember what it was called, but it's the match them type thing, the matching pairs or whatever, with Garfield images. I used to love that as well. I just love that game. Nice game. Turtles aren't exactly fast, no, but you know, it doesn't excuse it. They should. It's their fault for doing turtles. They didn't have to do turtles. Oh, speaking of which, has anyone seen this meme? I love this meme. This one, I like this one. Maybe the Alliance will attack Silvermoon. Why? No, does anyone even live in Silvermoon, really? Few scabby blood elves still. Top 5 most anticipated changes. It would be a lie though, wouldn't it? Because I don't really anticipate any changes. But wasn't what data mine, sorry. Wish they'd let us be the seagull or the crab. Well, you can actually you can just let them die. In fact, do you know what? Hakila came up with what I thought was the best solution. If anyone saw on Twitter, he came up with what I thought was the best idea for BFA. If they really want to make BFA great again, they should use his suggestion, which is to design a raid around the notion of stopping the turtles getting into the water. They should actually make a raid fight where it is your job to stop turtles getting into the water. That would be a genius stroke. Absolute genius. People would be well excited about that. I would. Have I seen the new animation for Avenging Wrath on the PTR? Yes, I have. I will be doing a video on it when I get time. Do you know what? When I was getting some footage for it as well, the thing I noticed, which completely blew me, is because... So there were a couple of new animations in the beta, which I didn't really like, I have to say. There was the upside down wings for Templar's Verdicts, which is just shite. I don't know why that's in. Then there was the flicking through the book for the Holy Light. But that seems to have gone. And I had no idea. It was in the beta, but it's not in live. I thought, what was that about? And I didn't like it, I have to say. It looked good, it just didn't suit Holy Light, I didn't think. So yeah. So I was a bit worried when I heard new animations. I went on and I had a look and I thought, especially Light of the Dawn, because I quite like Light of the Dawn as it is now. But I do think that they are, yes, I quite like the new animations. I think they're better than the ones that they were doing in the beta at any rate. Alliance attacking Silvermoon. They can't even clean up Nomragon. No. The Alliance could easily clean up Nomragon if we wanted. We don't want to. It's the gnomes that can't clean up Nomragon, not the Alliance. You go to Nomragon, you see what's camped outside it. Gnomes only. No other Alliance races give a shit. You don't like wings going down? No, well. Still nothing on Ret AoE? No, there are no gameplay additions to the PTR as far as I can tell at the moment. Alliance won't bulb Silvermoon. Half their player base wants the Blood Elves to join the Alliance. Well, that is also true. Yes. Engineer Tutor hates gnomes. I don't hate gnomes. They just all need to die, that's all. It's nothing personal. Hi, Ryan. Oh, you're having fun on Ret Poly. Good stuff. I find it fun. I enjoy the gameplay there at Paladin. It would just be nice if I didn't hit like a wet noodle in AoE in my... Because all I'm doing is Mythic Plus dungeons. If I was raiding, I wouldn't mind it, except of... Well, maybe. I don't mind the raids so much. But Mythic Plus dungeons... Even though overall, I still tend to come top of damage. But I think that a lot of that is because we're not very good at doing the dungeons. We're not really got the gear for it or the practice for it, skill, whatever, doesn't matter. So people die. And then I get a retribution passive. Can I see any law reason why more races couldn't be paladins? No. At this point, I see no reason why any race couldn't be a paladin, apart from gnomes, obviously. So no, I see no reason at all not to add more in. But not gnomes. Gnomes can never be.
Sorry, no current plans for gnome paladins, but...
Damn.
Maybe.
His name's Mr. Gnome Paladin. You ruined his screen name.
I know. We want to, like, we try to be as flexible as possible when it comes to, you know, the race class combinations. Part of it is like the nature of paladins. It's this like orderly dedication to the light, this combination of things that feels somewhat at odds with gnomish nature.
There we go. I keep having to play that just to remind people. Ian Hazakostas himself said no gnome paladins. That's it. End of story. Where's my chat thing gone? There it is. Blood Elves try to... Oh, well, storyline-wise, all sorts of things happen, but... One general so racist and condescended. No, well, that was when the Blood Elves, as High Elves, were part of the Alliance. Yes. Which is better, armor versus defense versus stamina? The ones who used to annoy me were the warrior tanks in TBC who just went mass stamina and as an excuse to stand in shit to generate more rage. The only rage it generated was in me as trying to heal them. Gnome Priest should never have been a thing. Cataclysm was responsible for many heinous features within the World of Warcraft. Gnome Priest was one of them. Tauren Paladins was another. And the 1 to 60 redesign was a third. The expansion was well named Cataclysm. You don't feel that Ret AoE is that bad. You can do... Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but... You sometimes can, but you often can't. Like in a Mythic Plus dungeon with people who can actually do AoE, you're most of the time on most trash packs not going to be doing it. See no reason why Night Elves couldn't become Sunwalkers. That would be perverse, surely. But they just become Paladins. We've already got a Night Elf Paladin anyway in the lore. Makes no difference. Just make them Paladins. Would I like gnomes if they somehow redeem themselves? They'd have to stop squeaking and looking so smug. If you can be a priest, there is no reason you can't be a paladin. Yes, there is. You are forgetting one very important reason. To become a priest, all you have to do is somehow trick the light into letting it do things with you. To become a paladin, you have to be inducted into the Order of the Silver Hand by the High Lord. And I happen to be the High Lord. So, you can't be a paladin. Yeah, I've already said this. Gnome druids would be ridiculous. The Guardian would not be a carebait, it would be a hamster. You know, its kitty form would be a squirrel. It would be laughable. Absolutely laughable. Although, maybe they could... Their dance could be the hamster dance. You could do the hamster song. Which is that speeded up Disney thing. No, I'm the High Lord. I'm pretty sure you'll find I've got the title High Lord. I had it before any of y'all. I had it while the rest of you were still playing Warlords of Draenor. Blood Elves should be druids. I don't think it really... I don't know. Does it suit them really? I mean, as I say, at this point, if it weren't for gnomes, I'd be just okay with them saying, you know, whatever. They've already committed the second worst abomination possible in Tauren Paladins. Once you've done that, you might as well just let anything become anything. Just let any race be any class, but not gnome Paladins. That's the red line. Do I like how Mechatalk has a weapon called Wretch Caliber? I didn't even notice. Wouldn't that be Wrench Caliber? Well, that doesn't even make sense. What would have been better is if a shaman had a weapon called Hexcalibur. That would have been better. I mean, there was a weapon in vanilla called Excalibur, wasn't there, or something like that, from Razorfen Crawl. Might still be there, I don't know. Gnome Boomkin would be a chicken, if we're lucky. More like a quail. BFA was the perfect opportunity to add ogres and high elves to get back to Warcraft. Yeah, they seem to have a thing against high elves, don't they? They're not having it. They're not allowing it. I don't know why they don't just add it as a cosmetic choice to night elves. Just have the same racials and everything. I know the wisp might be a bit funny, but I'm sure they could think of some cosmetic change to it. Call it different things. Don't call it wisp form. You know, I see no reason why they couldn't just have a variant of night elves that was effectively high elves. Tauren Paladins have no business being a thing. I can't think of a class-race combination that is worse than that. That's why I say, apart from Gnome Paladins, obviously. That's why I say anything might as well be anything now, at this point. Where's Thrall? I don't know. I really don't know. I thought he was supposed to be, you know, shifting Vol'jin's ashes around. But it seems to be me that's doing that. I don't hate Tauren Paladins. Why do people think that when I don't like something it means I hate it? No, they're just ridiculous, that's all. Doesn't mean I hate it. They're just silly. For their sake. It's actually because I like Tauren that I don't want them to be Paladins. I don't like to see them embarrass themselves. That's all there is to it. We didn't really have a female ogre-like model until now with the large dire blood troll females. Ogres may yet happen. They might have to shrink them down a little bit, though. Don't you think? I mean, I'd be all for an MMO where you could have... I mean, I suppose we've got gnomes. They're tiny. Maybe it wouldn't be that bad to have a really huge character, I guess. Maybe you could. Maybe they could. Ian said something about blood elves essentially being high elves. Yeah, he said that, but they're not. I mean, they are, but they're not. Because high elves are still part of the alliance, because that's the crucial thing. Blood elves are Horde. So what he's deliberately misunderstanding is that there are alliance players that want to play that. They don't have the option of playing a blood elf. That's why I say they could easily have a variant of night elves that allows you to pick certain high elf features, and then your racial abilities will be called something different, but function in exactly the same way. Taurens are cows. You can't be racist to cows. I'm not being racist. I am doing it for their concern. Cows are also extremely silly animals. They're based on a silly animal. They are a silly creature. And silliness has no... Just like Ian said, you know, paladins are, you know, disciplined. Have you ever seen a disciplined cow in your life? No. Sunwalkers are basically just balance druids. Yeah, but they're wearing my shields. You don't see why they can't make a high elf allied race. That doesn't need to be an allied race. There is zero... It doesn't even make sense to make it an allied race, because the whole point of the allied race is they're joining the alliance. High elves are already in the alliance. The few... And there are not that many high elves, but the high elves that exist are already part of the alliance. So they're not allied. They're in there. I don't see that Void Elves needed to have that. I still think Night, I think it should just be an option and just make them identical. So there's no extra development time, basically, is what I'm saying. It's sort of a different choice in some ways, but they have the same things as Night Elves. Monk's sub-flexibility, what the hell would that be? You have seen cows stealth in the forest, then charge. No, you haven't. Why haven't they added the new emotes to the new races? I have no idea. I didn't even know they hadn't. If they haven't, then I can only think laziness. Again, without trying to be too critical, there does occasionally, not all the time, seem to be an issue of abandoning a job rather than finishing it because they bite off more than they can chew. Like Ian Hazakostas can moan as much as he likes that he doesn't have the resources to be able to deliver. He's the one who decided what they needed to deliver and should have costed it up in terms of the resources they had. So he's bitten off more than he can chew. And I strongly suspect that if they haven't done things like that, that's why. Alliance needs a horse allied race. What, just because every mount that the Alliance can get at the moment is a horse? Dark Iron Dwarfs are already part of the Alliance as well, though. Yeah, I suppose. But they were also a bit outcast, weren't they? Like, of course, Moira took her seat up. But that was really as the daughter of Magni, wasn't it? So I think you're right, but I think really the Dark Iron Dwarf thing is just cementing the fact, because we could still be forgiven for wondering, given that the only Dark Iron Dwarfs in the game before BFA were still in Blackrock Mountain, not very friendly towards us. Come to Norway, you'll show me cows on the mountains. Doesn't mean to say they're stealthy, though, does it? I shall have a look at Norwegian cows on YouTube, though. I'm pretty sure the internet stops me having to actually go to places to see things. Should make high elves and give them to the Horde. That'll piss everyone. No, high elves are nice. What's wrong with high elves? Just balance it by giving Alliance ethereals. I'm not even sure I'd want to play an ethereal, though. Are not Void Elves essentially high elves that have chosen to delve into the Void? Well, they are. But what I mean is, a lot of the racials and character of Void Elves makes it... I think it's easier to cosmetically change Night Elf racials, basically, to be suitable for High Elves, than it does to cosmetically change Void Elf racials to be suitable for High Elves, is what I think. Why is Moira's son still a baby? Don't know. Do not know. But I don't know. I mean, dwarves, maybe they're longer lived. Maybe they stay a baby for longer. Who knows? As long as you get to ride a bee as Alliance, you're happy with the mount bars. Well, exactly. I love those bees. I think they're fantastic. It's what made Stormsong... There's two things that made Stormsong Valley my favourite zone out of the whole game. One are the nice windmills. I like the windmills. And two are the bees. Love the bees. Are there any allied races you want to see apart from Murlocs? Bee people. Yeah, we'll have bee people. That'd be nice. We haven't got an insect race, have we? Would you one? We had like the Klaxi, but we couldn't play them. Have bee people. Like druids, they have their own flight form. Don't need to get a special mount for it. They just fly. Fly off. They could have like a snare that just drops a load of honey. Or a slow. Whatever. Why not make an unlockable appearance for Void Elf? Devoidify them by some ritual. Well, they could do that too. I mean, that would be a way to introduce racial variants as well. More. I mean, that's what they've done with allied races, isn't it? Put it behind achievements. They should do more things like that. Putting cosmetic things behind achievements. Not that an allied race is entirely cosmetic. Mantids, yes. Oh, yeah. When I said Klaxi, I suppose I should really have said Mantid, shouldn't I? Klaxi are just like their rulers. Sort of. Champions, I guess, is really what I mean. But bees would be better. There were also dark-eyed in wetlands. Well, yeah. But they weren't friendly either. Near the Thandal span, wasn't it, if I remember rightly? A paladin bee with wings all the time. Yeah. I'm not sure we should actually have a paladin bee person. I mean, it wouldn't just be a bee standing on its hind legs. That would be silly. It would have to be like an anthropomorphic bee. But I could see some. Let's see. Let's see if Google has something on this. See if someone's already drawn one. Oh, I suppose, yeah. There's that stupid film with a... What was the name of that stupid film? With the bees. That might work a little bit with smaller heads. Can't remember the name of it now. I never watched it. The whole Night Warrior thing attached to the Tyrande campaign is a good example of cosmetics locked behind achievements, albeit a questline instead. There's lots of things they should do. Maybe they'll start to do more of it. I mean, I sometimes look at the Dreadwake promotion and see, is that them tentatively using cosmetics to, get people to play for longer or something like that. I just don't think it's done well. But it's the right idea. And having more cosmetic rewards behind more of the longer achievements should be a given. Have I seen anything from Blizz about fix it? No, I haven't seen anything. There's nothing I'm anticipating at all, other than that they are going to do. The only thing I'd anticipate is, at the very least, some change to Divine Judgment. But I don't know what. There's various ideas being bandied about. And potentially some change to Judgment. But it all depends on what they do with Divine Judgment. But beyond that, I don't know anything anymore. Bees are very disciplined. Well, they are. Yes. Well, maybe we could have a bee person paladin. We'd have to see what it looks like. Oh, Bee. Was it just called Bee Movie? Okay. Never saw it, but I vaguely remember adverts. As silly as the name is, the Night Warrior stuff is pretty exciting. You wonder what you could extend that to for other races. Upright. Pretty Forsaken. Well, for Alliance Forsaken. But they wouldn't be Forsaken anymore, would they? That seemed to be... I've lost it again now. That Before the Storm seemed to be a bit of an indicator of that. If there were bee paladins, Winnie the Pooh would be the ultimate counter. I've got to be honest, I'm not entirely sure that Winnie the Pooh generally got the better of the bees. He sometimes maybe did. You want a fresh dead body like Nathanos for Forsaken? Yes. You one that just looks like it's on the turn but hasn't actually fallen to bits yet, yes. Changing Zeal, I'm not sure about... I've not heard anything about any issues around Zeal, so I'm not expecting anything. There's a Winnie the Pooh Easter egg in Stormsong, is there? Right. I liked the Troll Under the Bridge rare in Stormsong, but that's not always there. Do I believe that Blizzard is likely to completely disregard the mobility issue? Well, the fact that they put 8 seconds in and then took it away to 3 seconds, I read it as meaning two things. One, that they agree that there's movement issues. But two, they may not want to do anything about it because they took it away immediately. 8 seconds is not too long, though. I don't know. Why would 8 seconds be too long? We wouldn't even be the only class in the game to have that. It's not too long at all. World of Warcraft. There's no evidence of World of Warcraft's dying. Behave yourself. You want Divine Tempest back? I miss Divine Tempest. Especially given that they put so many melee-hating mechanics in AoE situations. Like, there's sometimes when you've got your mobs there and you just cannot go in there, or just you dip in and out and you try and be on the edge of it and do your Divine Storm. Just to be able to fire it through would be way better. So I miss Divine Tempest, I have to say. Perhaps face paints in the style of Sourfang for orcs. Berserker trolls. Lots of possibilities. For what? What have I missed? 6 seconds will still make it amazing. It would make it better. But there's nothing wrong with 8 seconds. Rogues have 8 seconds. Theirs is 8 seconds, isn't it? And that's not even their own ability. Talents depending. Yes, Divine Tempest, yeah. It wasn't that it was actively removed. It was an artifact trade, yeah. And to be fair, they couldn't really... I was trying to think of ways in beta if they could have made it a talent, maybe linked it with something else. It's possible they could if they tied it... Well, I mean, it did have a buff to Divine Storm with the tech trait as well. You know, they could have made an argument for having it as a talent. Have I seen the Zalath stuff? What, in BFA? No, not really. Unless it was also in the beta, in which case I may have come across it and forgotten it. I certainly don't recall it. You want Arakoya allied race? Arakoya can't be an allied race because we don't have Arakoya. Allied races are variants of races that can already be played. We can't play Arakoya. Arakoya could be a new race if the next expansion involved a lot of Arakoya. That would be doable. Oh, the PTR. No, I've hardly had a chance to do anything on the PTR at all. Because I only just got it working. After someone helpfully told me not to have DirectX 12 for it. What was wrong with Divine Hammer? Nothing. Do you know what? We almost had... We would have had Divine Hammer if common sense had held sway. Do you know the reason we don't have Divine Hammer? It's because there are loads of people, and I said this during the alpha, it's because there are loads of people that just for some reason like Consecration. Because that was our choice. The actual game designer gave us a straight up choice. He said, what should we do? Should we do Divine Hammer or Consecration? And I had to argue, unfortunately, I said, sorry, the green screen is just weird. My lighting's been really weird today. I said I had to argue that Divine Hammer would be better, but that more people would prefer Consecration. So that's unfortunately how that ended. Because we couldn't have both, we had to have one or the other. The easy allied races use an existing skeleton. Allied race. This makes sense of a starting out to give backstory. Wow. What about Hosen allied race of pandas? Well, they're not the same as pandas. You could have a Hosen race, just not an allied race. I mean, I did wonder, actually, because there's some Hosen appeared in BFA, of course, aren't there? So, they obviously like islands. At the rate allied races are being developed, how many do you think we'll have by the end of BFA? Not much more than we've got now. Ian Hazakostas did tackle this question, and he basically said they don't want to end up with loads of allied races. So, I'm going to guess Obviously we've had Magar Orcs and Dark-Eyed Dwarves now. We know we're getting Kulturans and Zandalari trolls. I think by the end of BFA, unless they have a massive change of heart, which is possible, I think we'll have 2 more. One for Alliance and one for Horde. I think the Alliance one will be some form of undead. And I hope that the Horde one, even though it's cutting my nose off to spite my face, will be leper gnomes. Now, none of those things are pandas. Pandas are pandas. If you wanted an allied race for goblins, it would have to be another type of goblin. You think the talent doesn't add enough additional AoE to the rotation, or effectively only Divine Storm? What, Divine Judgment? Yeah, Divine Judgment's not in a great place. See, I like the concept of it for situations where you've got a priority target, but you also need to AoE stuff around it. Because that can happen quite a bit in Mythic Dungeons. I mean, with Raging, for example, well, for a little bit anyway. So I quite like the concept. Or if you've got a boss that you need to burst down, but you've also got ads. I quite like the idea of it. It's just that it doesn't work. It's just unfortunate. Well, the problem, you say they put too much into all our damage into finishers. The problem with it is we only have 2 finishers. Oh, we can probably have that one. That's the issue of it. Well, as baseline anyway, obviously there's talents that are as well. Although, even those talents, none of them are AoE finishers. The allied races start as 20. Yeah, well, yeah, it don't take much to get to 20. It's the quickest 20 that you get away with. Big neck cosmetic option unlocked via questline. Out of the Night Warrior. Oh, right, okay. You want the old animation for Divine Storm back from Wrath. There's quite a few people say that. I'm not. To be honest, I don't bother that much because I zoom so far out of my character anyway. Barely even notice what it looks like. Sometimes an animation can change and I don't even notice if someone doesn't point it out to me. There are underwater goblins called giblins. There are, yes. Yes. We could have those. Alliance could have those. Just, you know, underwater breathing. Then Alliance and Horde both get one like that. If another race got paladins, who would it be? Night Elves. Because there already is one. They've already set the store for that. Zandalari trolls, I think, most realistically are the ones who are going to be. Because I'm absolutely convinced, not when Zandalari trolls come out, because I don't even know when they come out. It might be sooner rather than later. But I definitely think there's a story, it makes no sense otherwise, that's going to lead to Zandalari troll paladins. Absolutely convinced of it. Just not necessarily when Zandalari trolls come out. But I don't know when that is. You think it only just so happens that allied races appear to be sub-races? No, I think it's a core feature of them. I think they were doing sub-races, because Blizzard made a point of there are no sub-races in WoW. They're making it clear that they are basically sub-races, but they're sub-races where you can't really just choose to be them. They lock it behind achievements, and you know, you have to pay for the race change, as opposed to just going to the barber and getting yourself changed. Hose and Jinyu could be the perfect... No. Allied races are races that already exist, and that's how they are. That's how they were defined. That's how they're going to be. Because otherwise it's not an allied race, it's an actual race. If you're going on the basis that allied races are just sub-races, yes, why do you think the opposite faction will get a sub-race of the other faction's races? So they can play them. Simple as that. People want to play them. People want to... Like, in a lot of MMOs, you can play whatever race you want. In World of Warcraft, I'm not saying it's the only one, but in World of Warcraft you can't. You choose. Either you get to play the race you want, or you get to play, or sometimes, you know, if you want to play a particular... You've got to... race, class, faction are 3 really important character creation decisions. But you don't get a free choice of them. If you want to prioritise playing a particular race, then you're limited by faction. If you want to play a particular class, then you may be limited by race, and so on. So it's the fact that you could have, for example, the reason why people are going on about high elves all the time, it's not because people are not happy that blood elves aren't similar enough. It's the fact that blood elves are Horde. That doesn't help an alliance player play a high elf. Why do Alliance get a Zandalari rep bar? Because that was from Vanilla. Because we did their bidding in Zul'Gurub. That was it. Because I was saying about Hosen, we could easily have Hosen as a race, and they could have as their racial fling poo, which does the same thing as a camel spit. You know, that'd be good for PvP, wouldn't it? They haven't had them on opposite factions, but that doesn't mean to say they couldn't. And also, if they had High Elf, well, I don't think High Elves would make a sensible allied race anyway, because, like I say, it just... There's no point in having a quest introducing them to the Alliance formally, because they were never not in the Alliance. The ones who left the Alliance became the Blood Elves. Or now the Void Elves, I suppose. But they were in the Horde before they moved back. Sure you're missing something, but you can't think of any Horde subraces that would join the Alliance. Undead would. We've already had a book, a whole novel, and all that novel did was set the scene for Undead joining the Alliance. Don't know why I'm holding up an invisible book, but there you go. Tauren could go Alliance easy. Oh, absolutely. That's another thing that happened in the book. It sort of set the scene for that, but I don't think they would do that. I don't think they could have... You could maybe have an ally, like some Tauren go, but I don't believe that would happen either. The thing is, the Forsaken I can see as being divided, with some of them staying in the Horde and some going to the Alliance. I can see that. I don't see the Tauren as being a divided people. So I don't believe you'd have a situation where some of them went to the Alliance. I don't... That wouldn't make sense to me. You could see storyline-wise all of them going to the Alliance, but that would piss off all the Tauren players who want to play Horde. So they would never do that for just obvious, you know, logistical reasons, really. Grimtote and Grimtote are arseholes. They're not joining the Alliance. They're just arseholes to everyone, though. I'm talking about the proper Tauren. The ones who are actually, like, nature lovers, tree huggers, hippies. Seem to be toning down on the requirements for the heritage armor. Do I think they'll update that for allied races? Maybe. I think the purpose of the leveling up to get heritage armor was because they just wanted a time sink for people. I think once they decide that that it no longer serves that purpose, they'll probably be happy to loosen up the reins on it. You want Forsaken looks like Nathanos? Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'd certainly like a larger range of Forsaken looks. I don't know why they always have to look like they've been in the ground for a year. They could be recently dead. That's fine. Now, we're not having Hosen Paladins, though. Remember what we said about the discipline? Oh, the Grim Totem female in the Shaman class. Oh, yeah. But no, I don't really see more than... There might not be any more allied races for a while in terms of what has already been announced. But I can see there being Alliance Undead. Otherwise, if at the end of this expansion that's not a thing... I'm not saying it should be a thing, but I'm just saying if it's not a thing at the end of this expansion, I'm going to wonder what the bloody hell Before the Storm was about. Seriously. I'm going to really wonder what the hell that was about. The Dwarven Heritage Armour looks... the Dwarven Heritage Armour, yes. The Dark Iron Heritage Armour I don't like at all. I can easily miss that out. But the Ram looks nice, of course. And Dark Iron, or just, you know, the Dwarf Paladin Ram now as well. They've got their own mount, which looks really cool too. You dislike that so many faction leaders, allied races have different unplayable appearance options. I have often said that I dislike the limitations on stuff that we can transmog. Just in general. You know. Again, Blizzard just don't seem to understand the appeal of looking cool. And it annoys me that they don't provide more customization. Like first thing I was doing when I was playing through on the alpha was like look at some of these Kulturan stuff, and not the plate stuff, the leather stuff, or what looks like leather. You know, the trench coats and things like that. And I thought I'd love to have that as a transmog. But I know that even if they brought it in as transmog, it would not be available to me as a paladin to transmog onto my plate gear, which is annoying. The only thing I didn't like about my Ram when I was playing it in the beta is the horn it sounds, like the Vrykul type horn when you summoned it. Didn't like that. I don't know whether that's still in actually, but I was not at all keen on that. You like the Dark Iron Dwarf army? Yeah, I dislike. Don't see the point in it. It possibly because it reminds me of Paladin Tier 3, which I also didn't like. Given what Sylvanas has done and how recently the allied races have joined, you find it ridiculous that any of them remained loyal to her. I find any number of motivations ridiculous. Because as far as I can tell, she's done worse things than Garrosh did. And there was outright revolt against Garrosh's actions. Raiding Mythic Plus gear is only temporary. That will all be replaced. Transmog pieces are forever. Exactly, yeah. That's exactly the point. And there's a lot of players, there's a massive amount of the player base are not even going to get the Mythic Plus and raiding pieces. They're not even going to get those. But they'll go for the cosmetic stuff. The horn is still there. No, I didn't like it. You don't like how dumb the Ram looks when it runs? Well, it's a dwarf thing. Of course it looks dumb when it runs. But it's a cool mount. Just stand still and admire it. Sylvanas might just be the person to break undead into sub-factions. Yeah, absolutely. Well, she effectively already has in the storyline. It just hasn't been reflected in the game. Do I think Undercity or Big Fancy Tree will be repaired? No, I think they have a reason. They have their reason for wanting an Alliance continent and a Horde continent. And that will remain for the foreseeable future. Not necessarily forever, of course, you know. But, yeah. Although the problem is, if we're supposed to believe that for the entirety of BFA that Teldrassil is on fire, there probably won't be much left of it to repair if they want to change that in the next expansion. I'm pretty sure they'll have to grow a new tree. You think the new raid tier armor looks good, but not so much the mail. Mail is very hit and miss, I find. But then it might depend on personal preference. Some of the mail I think looks bad. Some people think looks good. You play WoW for story and transmog. Well, I do now, I suppose. Except I'm not that bothered about the transmog. Even the old god stuff feels weak. I think that's going to ramp up though. I think that's possibly a bit of a slow burner. I think that's what this expansion is about. I'm utterly convinced of it. I think it's going to get there. It's the one part of the story that I'm reasonably happy with at the moment. You can't wait to see this big reveal as to why Sylvanas had to be Warchief per the Shadowhunter. Yes, neither can I. That is a part of the story, even though that's not a part of the story that I think has been done well so far. It is one I am interested to find out how much of it I got right. Normal dwarves we play as our Bronzebeard clan. Yes. That is correct. Well, I shall have to look up this Xalatath stuff then. Because I haven't seen anything that has been... If there's stuff been data mined from the PTR, which I suppose there will have been, I haven't as yet seen it. Am I excited for more Warfronts? I'm not excited for more Warfronts. I am reasonably, tentatively interested in the fact that future Warfronts don't look like they're just going to be the same things with a different location. You know, from what Ian Hazakostas was saying in his 8.1 pitch, it sounds like they're going to do more things with them as well. That's interesting. It's just a bit of a shame that it might well be that when all is done and dusted, Warfronts turn out to be a great piece of content, but that it wasn't firing on all 4 cylinders, from assuming it's got 4 cylinders, from the start. That would be my disappointment. But I am encouraged by what he said, shall we say that. You're looking forward to the Dark Shore one? Yes, so am I, actually. Yeah. What's my theory on her being Warchief? I've already come to it 100 times, yeah. It's simple as this. The old gods wanted her to be Warchief. They wanted her to trigger this war. They've been trying to get they've been trying to get Horde leaders to trigger wars for ages. They found someone who would do it. They couldn't. So what they did is they pretended to be lower spirits to Vol'jin, or spoke through actual lower spirits who were corrupted. Is the other possibility, of course. And there you are. And I also think that at some point what was I saying? Yeah, at some point it will become evident to Sylvanas that this is what's happened, because I don't think she actually is as destructive as might be reasoned from her actions. I think she'll realise that she's been played, and because I think something has to happen for her not to be the Warchief at the end of this expansion, and it's not going to be a simple uprising. That's been made clear. There's not going to be an uprising as such. So I think, or at least I don't see that, I think that Sylvanas is going to commit some sacrifice. She won't die. She can't kill a character like that off. But she'll basically step down as Warchief of the Horde, probably leave the Horde altogether, and maybe go out on some, become an old god hunter type thing. I think something like that. What's my favourite lower? I like the frog, Gragwa. Apart from the fact when he keeps shouting at me in Nazmir, but I think as lower go, I think he's my favourite at the moment. Do you think we could petition Blizzard to change our paladin icon to a hammer in a wheelchair? I'm not sure they'd do that. The only old god left who could possibly speak through low to make Sylvanas Warchief was imprisoned and couldn't really do anything without the help of Ashara. Yeah, but that story was a long time ago. That was thousands of years ago. It's been fine. Not all lower are wild gods, but a lot of them are, yes. Like Bunsamdi isn't. Not quite sure what he is yet. Other than potentially, I assume, a former troll himself, who somehow became extremely powerful in death. No, I don't like Siege. Of all the chaos powers in Warhammer, Siege is the one I've never really got on. And I don't understand why, if I'm honest. No idea why. Because I really like my magic. But I'd actually rather play Khorne than Siege. I just don't like the aesthetics of them. Where are your ogres? In Diamore. No, it's Bunsunday. Is the Horde leveling experience really much better than Alliance? No. I preferred the Alliance leveling experience. The only thing that I thought was more interesting than the Horde was the fact that the Old God story was much more advanced. And there was a lot of like intriguing stuff in it. But that was like one main quest line in Nazmir. The rest of it I didn't find at all anywhere near as engaging as the Alliance stuff. Not that I'm saying all the Alliance quests were great either. You know, the one where you had to stop those polymorphed pigs becoming sausages seemed a bit ridiculous to me. You know, the idea that someone who makes sausages was evil just because he was turning people pigs into sausages, who he may not have even known were people pigs. And we had to kill it. That was a bit silly. I like Nurgle, yeah. Slanesh's favourite, but Nurgle's one I'm working on at the moment. Because there's no Slanesh battle tome. You think the Lich King is about to make a major comeback? I think definitely. Daughter's in the game. They've brought his daughter into the game, who didn't even necessarily have to exist. I think the Lich King being in it is a dead cert. Although not necessarily this expansion. It may be, but it's not necessarily this expansion. It might be the next expansion. Return of the Witch King. They wouldn't call it that. But, you know. So it might be, that might be a something that's leading up, but not for this expansion. But it may be, who knows. It might be that they just use this expansion to build up his darling daughter. And then at the end of the expansion, some event, she finds out. And because I still don't know who knows that Bolvar is the Lich King. We know that the Knights of the Ebon Blade know. We know that we know. We don't know that the other Alliance leaders know. And there doesn't seem to be much love lost between Darian and Bolvar as Lich King either. You meant allied race for Horde? Hold on. Oh, for ogres. They can't be an allied race. Because we don't have ogres. You can have them as a new race. Maybe. You think low is a catch-all term for spirit used by trolls? It is, yeah. No, that's exactly what it is. Even, you know, I haven't got it with me. The Warcraft Chronicles goes over that in a little way, sort of. But yeah, they are. But Flynn has been banging her. Do we know that? I think he's too drunk ever to get it up. If Flynn and Anduin are going to fall out, I think Anduin will win. Why must there always be a Lich King? Well, I don't know, but the official line was because without it, the restless dead will have no one controlling them and they'll run amok. But then I would make the argument, if there was no one raising the dead, then they can go running amok as much as they like. We'll smash them into the ground. Eventually they'll stop twitching and more dead people will stop being risen and eventually we'll have no one dead. So yes, I don't know. I'm not convinced it's a part of the storyline that makes a lot of sense. But I could write a very big book on the storylines that don't make total sense. That's actually one of the least puzzling ones. How much Scourge could there possibly be left? Well, if people keep raising them up quite a lot. We know that Bolvar is not above raising them up because he raised up a load of big old champion Scourge for, whether he wanted to call them Scourge is another matter, for the Death Knight Order Hall questline, didn't he? So you're not going to tell me he hasn't been raising up little tiny Scourge as well. Never thought about the fact that faction leaders don't know about the new Lich King, yeah. See, I don't know where we are with that. Because it was supposed to be kept a secret. But who knows? What do I think of full world level scaling? I have said that I wanted that from the start. Ever since I've seen it work brilliantly in Elder Scrolls Online, that's what I would want of any MMO. Any MMO. And I know what you're referring to because I know Az did a video on that as well, didn't he? But I didn't see that either. But I saw the title. But yeah, it's for me. I know there are people who don't, though. Because when we've talked about it in the past, people have said that they prefer it as it is. But I would prefer it if it was just total exploration. You just go where you want, when you want. Can Bolvar raise new Death Knights? Yeah, someone's just said that. He already has. He already did it. Which, of course, if your line of thinking is, so what's this Blizzard saying about we can't have Pandaren Death Knights? Because, you know, yeah, you're right, we could. Their argument doesn't really hold water. If we can make new Death Knights, then races that exist now but didn't exist during Wrath could still exist. They just don't want to. I'll have answered this over and over. Would I be up for a level squish? Yes. Absolutely. They say the technical problems would mean that it would break the game worse than the stat and item level squish they did. All right. That might be an argument against it. I can't really argue against that. But if it can be done, I'd absolutely want it to be done. I also want them to stop giving us bloody levels for expansions. I don't see why we have to have them. It just goes up too much. It's too daunting for a new player, I think. You've heard that we fight Liadrin during 8.1 as the High Lord. Can't I just tell her to stop it? And she'd have to listen to you. No, well, this is the thing about the Order. This is the... Again, this is the nonsense of Blizzard storylines. They do a storyline for an expansion because it serves a purpose, and then they drop it and completely contradict it. The fact is that we are no longer our Order halls no longer really have leaders if you want to examine it, because there's a faction war going on. So Liadrin's first priority will be to the Horde. Actually, no, the High Lord is a member of the Horde. What are you on about? I'm the High Lord. I'm Horde. When I was human, she still wouldn't have listened to me. Gahoon is absolutely a Nurgle-inspired beast, yes. Looks like something a great unclean one shut out. So, yeah. No, the Ashspring was mine. You had a fake. You all had fakes. I had documentary proof at one time, but it's on another computer. Because the Ashbringer that you got off Tyrion was actually a fake. Because I had the real one. I switched it years ago. It'd been walking around with a balsa wood cutout since then. And that's what you inherited, I'm afraid. When they did Catazones, one of the big complaints was that it didn't feel like anything new was there. And it felt disconnected. Oh, well, yeah, because they were all over the place, weren't they? I don't remember that specific complaint because at the start of Cataclysm, I'd quit the game by then. So I didn't come back to it till the end of Cataclysm. So a lot of things like that, I don't know. You can fight Liadrin in the Warfront. Well, I can't, but yes. Our titles no longer make sense. No, they don't. You're not the High Lord. I'm the High Lord. You may have helped conquer another planet. Although by conquer, what you really mean is destroy it even more. But some shits in Culture has put you in jail. Yeah, but this is always the way of it, isn't it? At the end of an expansion, we always do something grand. And then the next expansion, we're picking through shit. That's just the way the game goes. Oh, can you fetch me 10 pigtails, please? Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, look at, from the Alliance questline point of view, you know when you're having to escort Flynn when he's drunk to take you to that freehold, basically. And what do? You're on this super important quest. You're trying to follow a drunk around. And then you stop and do a quest for someone who wants you to kill a load of things and nick their stingers. Or venom glands or whatever it is. And you do it. Instead of saying, no, sorry, I don't have time. I've got to try and move this drunk along so that we can actually save Azeroth. No, I'll go around and kill these giant wasps for you and kill these Komodo dragons. Do I think BFA will have a legendary in the style of Shadowmoor and Atish? No. I think if they have a legendary, it'll be much more in the style of Amanthal's Vision, which will be a super rare drop from the last boss of the expansion again on normal or above mode. Is what I actually think. To be fair, we willingly went to jail. No. Jaina willingly went to jail. I don't remember being given a choice in the matter. Would I rather have Thrall or Sourfang as Horde leader? Old Thrall or new Thrall? Because maybe Thrall would regrow his balls back if he became Warchief again. Old Thrall I would have as Horde leader. Sourfang's just... I mean, they're both pathetic at the moment. Sourfang and Thrall in their current form are both just pathetic. Can't think of any other word for it. We weren't subdued by guards. How do you know? Are you saying that you willingly allow them to strip you down to your undies? Is that what you're saying? I'm pretty sure I was subdued. There's no way they were taking my gear off me. The BFA rep feels pretty similar as in Legion. No, better. You've been playing Rogue to play something fresh. Do you feel the Azerite gear? What should Blizzard do to make rep fresh again? I think they already have made rep fresh. They just need to fix a few things that are not quite working. I quite like a lot of it. There's just the odd thing they need to make it. From my point of view, it just needs to work. And AoE doesn't quite work. Mobility doesn't quite work. Defensives, but I don't think they see defensives as an issue. As the person who saved the world multiple times, why couldn't you tell Catherine Proudmore to shut up and not imprison Jaina so we don't possibly lose our strongest ally? I have no idea. Don't ask me. Ask the story writers. This would be an obvious thing to do. Absolutely obvious thing to do. To have said to her, hang on a minute, right? The world is going to be destroyed. This world that you are standing on is going to be destroyed. Not sunk into the sea. Destroyed. Gone. Finished. Your whole civilization is dead and buried in 6 months flat. We're here to get your help to fix it, not to fight your petty familial arguments. That's what we should have done, and it's not what we did, because, you know, the story writers are treating us like idiots, quite frankly. It's embarrassing sometimes, but there you go, that's the way of it. We do all the work and then we have to give the medal to the Inquisitor who just stood around with their thumb up. Like legendaries and artifact weapons were great when we have less rather than more in the expansion. I don't think legendaries were ever really great, ever, in the game. I've never thought they had a good legendary system at all. Bane is extremely pathetic. I mean, people pointed to the fact that Bane snarled a little bit in that cinematic as, oh no, he's not pathetic. Look, that makes him more pathetic because now we know he's pissed off at the chain of events. He still did nothing. Sylvanas stared him down and says, what are you going to do about it then? And he just put his head down and went, for the Horde. All right, I'll do as I'm told. I'll go now. Absolutely worthless. I need to fix that window of downtime on Retin. Well, it's what it is. It's just what it is. I don't think they're going to change that. We were there to gain the trust of the Kulturans. Didn't do a very good job, did we? Well, eventually, I suppose. But that's only because the only reason that whole mission didn't go to shit was because of one old grizzled veteran. That was it. If he'd have been an arsehole, we'd have been sunk. The whole mission would have been a complete disaster. Ken would have cut Sylvanas down. Well, of course, yeah, he wouldn't have stood for that. But yes. Every new expansion, we are beggars on the corner all over again. Well, I think a lot of people like that. I think what a lot of people didn't like is when we kept moving into... we kept becoming ever more important as a character instead of being the mysterious stranger who comes and saves the day. So I think people like the idea that we can go back and be rather unknown again, except we're not unknown. We are still the champion of the Alliance or the champion of the Horde. Just not to the inhabitants of where we're going to, but we soon become so. It doesn't take more than a week. As soon as you've leveled up, even though you might not be officially exalted, you might as well be from a storyline point of view. Wasn't it Cairn who made Thrall accept the Forsaken? I believe it was, yes. Well, persuade is a better way of putting it. A few more minutes, we'll have to call this one. We've gone past here. It says, I've got another video to make tonight. It says, I hope Tyrande goes on a mass murder rampage because of Donasis. Well, it would fit her. No, it doesn't fit her character to be peaceful at all. I agree. It doesn't. If she'll kill her own people because they say no to her, what do you think she's going to do to a load of people who've set fire to her tree? Goodness sake. I don't understand why she hasn't already gone on a rampage, quite frankly. I think Malfuri must have chloroformed her. Is there any champion class they could come out to make you swap to from Ret? No. Because I've been playing a Retribution Paladin, in essence, for 30 years, which was before even Warcraft 1 came out. In any role-playing game where there's anything even remotely similar to a Paladin, I will play it. She hasn't gone on a rampage because of Anduin. Oh, I don't think she pays much attention to Anduin if she wants to. Malfurion maybe. But even she ignored, because he told her not to kill all the Wardens in Warcraft 3. She didn't give a shit. And nor did he when she'd done it. He wasn't even all that disapproving. He didn't even say, you really shouldn't have done that, Who wouldn't want to play a holy warrior? If I'm a holy warrior, I should have charge. Because that's another thing. This is one of my last points today. It's been shown in cinematics there has never been a warrior character who has charged in any cinematic. There have been paladins who have charged. On more than one occasion. So technically, paladin charge is a paladin ability. And we should have one. Illidan shouldn't have stayed with the Titans. No, I think he should. He's done. His story was already done once, and now it's done again. It's done. It's finished with. Tyrande doesn't pay much attention to anything. No. Well, I don't know who she's based on in real life, but she's not a particularly pleasant person. Because, like I said before, actually, with the Nightborn joining the Horde, because I was wondering to myself, so I can understand the High Mountain tournament, because we'd helped both of them, bear in mind, as Horde and Alliance. And I thought I can understand the High Mountain joining, because you know, that kinship with the actual Tauren. But Nightborn, I thought, really? I know they got Pally with, you know, Liadrian. I thought, well, maybe. But then when I actually did the quest line and found out that Tyrande basically went up and was a complete bitch to Thalyssra. Was it Thalyssra? Yes. I totally understood it. I thought, oh yeah, that makes total sense that they would go to the Horde. Because why would they join the Alliance if Tyrande was providing the pitch for it? You miss class halls, don't? I don't. I go back to them. They've got training dummies in there. They're quite convenient. And it means I can go and use the training dummy, and there can absolutely, under no circumstances, ever be a gnome there. She is not going to rampage out of her guilt for abandoning her people to take Malfurion away. I don't think she feels guilty about that. I don't think she really gives much of a shit about her own people. Somehow she cares for Malfurion. That's it. When will the demo be playable? I assume when BlizzCon happens, which is like... When is it? Can't remember now. Not yet. You want to see streams? I will probably... Well, I will certainly stream some. Not a lot. Some. Depends exactly. Someone tell me when BlizzCon is, because I've forgotten now. Hold on, let me look it up. I'm not that lazy. Yeah, find the bloody thing. Where am I looking? What should be now, sorry. Second of November. So it's ages away yet. It's another month to go. Is Tyrande worse than Ashara? Well, no, I won't go that far. Tyrande is not completely power hungry. I mean, she was a little bit power hungry. Bear in mind, in the old story, she wasn't too pleased about... Because initially she wasn't made the High Priestess of Elune. Someone else was, and she was not happy. So she is a bit power hungry. But not as much as Ashara. Hi, Nicola. You think she cares a lot for her people? Not when they don't do what she wants, she doesn't. She kills them. I will be playing Retting Classic. Why wouldn't I? God, oh, of course I'll be playing Retting Classic. No, they were absolutely awesome. They weren't actually awesome. But I'm not good. They were fine. For solo stuff, they were perfectly good. They were awesome. It's the easiest game you'll play in your life, playing a Ret in vanilla. Why hasn't she had an heir yet? God, Bennett. She's probably quite a scary person. There should be more class-related quests. Well, they're not going to do more class-related quests because they had enough of it after Legion, didn't they? They did it in Legion, and then they went, shit, we're making all this content, and an individual player isn't getting to do it all, so we're making content for small amounts of the population. Too many resources. So one thing is certain, we are not going to be getting a significant amount, if any, class-specific stuff. Even if I'm wrong about Bane. Bollocks, am I wrong about Bane? You hope Tyrande won't die? I don't think she'll die. The Green Fire quest is the ideal type of quest they could do for class-specific stuff. I've said this before, you know, or someone said it last week, actually. No, it wasn't my idea, sorry. I'm taking credit. Someone said last week, like, We came up to it together. If you have different colours, recolours of certain spells, say, or slight redesigns, and you lock them behind an achievement that already exists, that way the developers don't have to create new content. The achievement's already there. Do this achievement that takes bloody ages, and you can have, you know, purple wings, something like that. I'd do an achievement for purple wings, and then that'd be fine. That'd be great. They should do more of that, because then they don't have to do more content, and we get shiny things. At the end of BFA, Tyrande is going to pull her face off and reveal that she was Sylvanas this entire time, and that Sylvanas isn't as bad as Tyrande. I mean, Tyrande's not as bad as Ashara, but Sylvanas isn't as bad as Tyrande. Tyrande would have absolutely set fire to the Undercity if it wasn't made of rock. The fact that, yeah. Tyrande is quite old. She's older than 10,000 years. It was 10,000 years between Illidan being imprisoned and TBC, wasn't it? Roundabout. So, yes, she's definitely at least 10,000 years, as you say. Blue wings alongside the rays. No. Purple. You can have blue wings. They can put blue wings behind some achievement I don't want to do. And I'll have purple wings for some achievement I'll get done anyway. But anyway, I'm going to call it an end there. I need to end this now. So thanks for coming on, everyone. Really good discussions tonight. And I will see you later.